The mop made a soft sound as it moved across the floor, back and forth, back and forth. Kang Tiho had done this same movement 10,000 times, maybe more. He did not count anymore. The hallway of the Galactic Royal Academy was empty now. All the students had gone to their rooms. All the teachers had finished their work. Only Tiho remained, pushing his cleaning cart through the long corridors of the space station. He was 38 years old. His hair was starting to show some gray. His hands were rough from years of work, but his eyes were still kind, still gentle. Those eyes had once looked at chalkboards and young faces. He had been a mathematics teacher on Earth. A good one, people said, but that was a long time ago. That was before his wife got sick, before the medical bills took everything, before she died and left him alone with their daughter. Now he was here, the Velen Orbital Station, a massive structure floating in space, home to the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. Humans were new to space travel. They were considered a lesser species by most aliens, simple creatures from a small blue planet, not very smart, not very advanced, good enough to clean floors and carry boxes. Tiho accepted this. He did not accept it for himself, but for Sara. His daughter was 10 years old. She had her mother's smile and her father's love for numbers. The academy allowed human children to attend if their parents worked on the station. It was the only way Sara could get an education this good. So Tiho mopped floors. He cleaned toilets. He emptied trash bins. He became invisible. The Velen aliens walked past him every day without looking. They were tall and beautiful, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. Their clothes were expensive. Their voices were proud. They ruled an empire of 50 planets. A human janitor was beneath their notice. Tiho finished mopping classroom 4B and moved to the next one. Classroom 5A, he pushed open the door and turned on his small work light. The room was messy, paper on the floor, tablets left on desks. Rich children never cleaned up after themselves, no matter what planet they came from. He began picking up the trash. Old food wrappers, broken styluses, crumpled papers. He was about to throw everything into his bag when something caught his eye. A test paper, crumpled into a ball and thrown toward the bin but missed. Tiho should have just thrown it away. It was not his business. But old habits were hard to break. He had been a teacher for 15 years. He still felt curious when he saw student work. He smoothed out the paper carefully. The writing was in Velen script, which he could not read, but mathematics was universal. Numbers were the same everywhere in the galaxy. He looked at the problems and the students' answers. The score at the top was written in red, 12 out of 100. Tiho frowned. He looked more carefully at the work. The student had tried, he could see that. There were many calculations on the page, many attempts, but something was wrong. The student understood parts of the concept but kept making the same mistakes, basic mistakes. The kind that happened when someone memorized steps without understanding why. He had seen this many times before, on Earth, in his own classroom. Students who were told, do it this way, but never told, this is why we do it this way. Tiho felt a small sadness in his chest. Somewhere on this station, a child was struggling. Somewhere, a child felt stupid because no one taught them properly. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. He did not know why. It was just a feeling. 2 hours later, Tiho finished his shift and went home. Home was a small room in the lower section of the station. 2 beds, a tiny kitchen, 1 window that showed the stars. It was not much, but it was clean and safe. Sara was sitting at the small table doing her homework. Her dark hair was tied in a messy ponytail. Her tongue stuck out a little as she concentrated. She looked up when her father came in. "Appa," she said, using the Korean word for father, "you're back." Tiho smiled and kissed the top of her head. "How was school today?" Sara made a face. "Math was weird again." "Weird how?" "The teacher just tells us to memorize formulas. She never explains anything. I asked why we use a certain formula and she looked at me like I was stupid." Tiho sat down next to her. "Show me what you're working on." Sora pushed her tablet toward him. It was a geometry problem, finding the area of a complex shape. The Velen method was all formulas and steps. No pictures, no explanation. Tiho picked up a piece of paper and a pen. He drew the shape. Then he drew lines inside it, breaking it into smaller pieces. "Look," he said, "this big shape is scary, right? But what if we cut it into pieces? This part is just a rectangle. This part is just a triangle. You already know how to find those areas. So you find each small area and then add them together." Sora's eyes lit up. "Oh, that makes sense." "Math is not about memorizing," Tiho said gently. "Math is about understanding. When you understand why something works, you never forget it." They worked together for an hour. Sora laughed when her father made the numbers into little characters with personalities. The number 7 was always causing trouble. The number 3 was too shy to speak up. It was silly, but it worked. It had always worked. Later that night, after Sora was asleep, Tiho took out the crumpled test paper from his pocket. He looked at it again. He wondered about the student who had failed so badly. He wondered if anyone was helping them the way he helped Sora. Probably not. Rich children had tutors, but tutors were not the same as teachers who cared. He put the paper away and went to sleep. The next night, Tiho was cleaning classroom 5A again. And again, he found a crumpled test paper in the trash. Same handwriting, same mistakes. This time the score was 15 out of 100, a small improvement but still failing. Tiho felt that sadness again. Whoever this student was, they were trying. They were really trying, but something was blocking them, something that no expensive tutor could fix. He wished he could help, but he was just a janitor, invisible, unimportant. What could he possibly do? Far away in the royal suite at the top of the station, Queen Velith stood before her twin daughters. Her silver eyes were cold. Her voice was colder. "Explain this," she said, holding up 2 test papers. Both had failing scores. Princess Lyra stared at the floor. Her hands were in fists at her sides. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to run away, but she could not. She was a princess. Princess Myra stood next to her sister, trembling. Tears were already falling down her blue cheeks. She felt sick with shame. "We tried, Mother," Lyra said through her teeth. "We studied for hours." "Then you did not study correctly." The Queen's voice was like ice. "I have hired 7 tutors for you, 7 of the best mathematical minds in the Empire, and still you fail. Do you know what people will say? They will say the Queen's daughters are defective. They will say the royal bloodline has grown weak." Myra let out a small sob. Lyra grabbed her sister's hand and squeezed it. "We are not defective," Lyra said, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. "Then prove it." The Queen turned away. "I am done discussing this. You will pass your next examination or there will be consequences." She left the room. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Lyra and Myra stood alone in the huge, beautiful room. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Expensive paintings covered the walls. Everything was perfect and cold and empty. Myra collapsed onto her bed, crying into her pillow. Lyra sat next to her, stroking her hair. "I hate math," Myra whispered. "I hate it so much. Why can't I understand it? Why am I so stupid?" "You're not stupid," Lyra said fiercely. "The tutors are stupid. They just talk and nothing makes sense. Maybe Mother is right. Maybe we are defective." "Don't say that. Don't ever say that." But even as Lyra said the words, she felt the same fear in her own heart. Maybe they really were broken. Maybe there was something wrong with their brains. Maybe they would never be good enough. The twins fell asleep holding hands, their faces wet with tears. And in the lower levels of the station, a human janitor put another failed test paper in his pocket, not knowing it belonged to the daughters of a queen. It was late in the evening when Tiho heard the crying. He was pushing his cleaning cart through the 7th floor corridor. This area was usually empty at night. The classrooms here were used for advanced students, the ones from royal and noble families. Tiho rarely saw anyone here after dark. But tonight there was sound coming from classroom 7C, a strange sound, like something hitting a wall, and then crying. Soft, quiet crying. Tiho stopped his cart. He should keep walking. This was not his business. Getting involved with students, especially important students, could get him fired, or worse. But the crying was so sad, so broken. It reminded him of Sara when she was younger, when she would cry for her mother in the middle of the night. He walked to the door and listened. More sounds of something hitting the wall, a voice shouting in frustration, and then that quiet crying again. Tiho opened the door. Two girls stood inside. They had pale blue skin and silver eyes. They wore expensive clothes with golden symbols on them, royal symbols. Tiho recognized them immediately. These were the twin princesses. He had seen them from far away before, always surrounded by guards and servants. One of them, the bolder-looking one, had just thrown a tablet against the wall. It lay on the floor in pieces. Her fists were clenched and her face was full of anger. The other one sat in the corner, hugging her knees. Tears ran down her face. She was the source of the quiet crying. Both girls froze when they saw Tiho. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The janitor and the princesses just stared at each other. Then the bold one stepped forward. Her name was Lyra, though Tiho did not know this yet. "Who are you?" she demanded. "How dare you enter without permission? Do you know who we are?" Tiho bowed his head. "I am sorry, Your Highness. I am Kang Tiho. I work as a cleaner here. I heard sounds and wanted to make sure everyone was safe." "Well, we are fine. Leave now." Tiho nodded and turned to go. But then the other princess, the one in the corner, spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We are not fine." Lyra spun around. "Myra, be quiet." But Myra kept talking, her voice shaking. "We will be sent away, Lyra. Mother said there will be consequences. If we fail again, she will send us to the academy on the moon, the strict one. We will never see home again." "That won't happen," Lyra said, but her voice was not confident. Myra looked at Tiho with red, wet eyes. "It does not matter that he is here. Nothing matters. We are failures. Everyone knows it." Tiho stood at the door, unsure what to do. These were royal children. They had servants and tutors and everything money could buy. What could a janitor possibly offer them? But then he saw the broken tablet on the floor. The screen was cracked, but he could still see what was on it. A math problem, a complex equation, and many, many wrong answers. Old instincts took over. Tiho walked to the tablet and picked it up. Lyra moved to stop him, but something made her pause. Maybe it was the gentle way he handled the broken device. Maybe it was the look in his eyes. It was not the look of a servant or a cleaner. It was something else. "This equation," Tiho said softly, looking at the screen. "Do you understand what it is asking?" Lyra crossed her arms. "Of course we do. We have studied it 100 times." "I did not ask if you studied it. I asked if you understand it." The question made both princesses stop. Myra looked up from her corner. Lyra's angry expression changed to confusion. "What do you mean?" Myra asked. Tiho set down the tablet and knelt on the floor. He reached into his cart and pulled out a cleaning rag and a bottle of water. He poured a little water on the floor and used the rag to draw a shape. "This equation," he said, "is about finding where a spaceship will land. Do you see? You have the starting point here, you have the speed here, you have gravity pulling it down. The equation is just asking, where will the ship touch the ground?" The twins stared at the wet drawing on the floor. "No one told us that," Myra whispered. "They just gave us the formula and said to memorize it." "Formulas are tools," Tiho said. "But a tool is useless if you do not know what it is for. A hammer is just a piece of metal if you do not know about nails." He drew more shapes on the floor. A curve, an arc, a line going down. The spaceship starts here. It goes up, up, up. Then gravity pulls it down, down, down. It makes this shape, a curve. The equation is just describing this curve with numbers. Lyra moved closer. Her anger was gone now, replaced by curiosity. So when we solve for the answer, we are finding where the curve touches the ground. Exactly. Myra stood up and walked over. Her tears were drying. Can you show us with a real problem? Tiho hesitated. He was a janitor. He should not be teaching royal children. If someone saw this, he could lose his job. He could be thrown off the station. But then he looked at Myra's hopeful face, and Lyra's curious eyes. These were not spoiled princesses. These were scared children who had been told they were failures. They reminded him of so many students he had taught on Earth. Smart children who just needed someone to believe in them. I can try, he said. He picked up the cracked tablet and looked at the problem. Then he drew on the floor again, this time with more detail. A supply ship leaves the station moving at this speed. The planet's gravity is pulling it down at this rate. Where will it land? He walked them through it step by step, not with formulas first, but with pictures, with stories, with meaning. The ship is flying. Gravity is pulling. The ship is fighting gravity, but gravity always wins eventually. The question is, when does gravity win? Where is the ship when it surrenders to the ground? Myra listened carefully. Her silver eyes moved from the floor drawings to the tablet screen. Something was happening in her mind. Connections were forming. Things that had been confusing were becoming clear. So the answer is not just a number, she said slowly. The answer is a place, a real place where the ship lands. Yes, Tiho said, smiling. Math is not just numbers. Math is the language of the universe. It describes real things, ships landing, stars burning, hearts beating, everything. Lyra grabbed a stylus from the floor. Let me try solving it, with the pictures in my mind. She worked through the equation. Her sister watched. Tiho waited patiently. When Lyra finished, she looked at her answer. Then she looked at Tiho. Is this right? Tiho checked her work. A slow smile spread across his face. Perfect. Lyra's mouth fell open. But I have never gotten a perfect answer before, ever. You were never taught properly before. Myra grabbed the stylus from her sister. My turn. Let me try the next problem. She worked slowly, carefully. She drew little pictures next to her calculations. A ship, a curve, a landing spot. When she finished, her hands were shaking. Well, she asked, barely breathing. Tiho looked at her answer, also perfect. Myra burst into tears again, but this time they were happy tears. She laughed and cried at the same time, covering her face with her hands. I did it, she kept saying. I actually did it. Lyra hugged her sister tightly. Then she looked at Tiho with an expression he had never seen from a Velen before. Respect. How do you know how to teach like this? She asked. You are a cleaner. I was not always a cleaner, Tiho said simply. I was a teacher once, on my planet, a long time ago. Before anyone could say more, the door opened. A tall Velen guard stood in the doorway. His eyes moved from the princesses to the human janitor to the wet drawings on the floor. Your Highnesses, the guard said coldly, you should not be here at this hour, and certainly not with this. He looked at Tiho like he was looking at garbage. Tiho immediately bowed low. I apologize, I was only cleaning. I will leave now. He grabbed his cart and moved toward the door. His heart was pounding. If the guard reported this, he would be in serious trouble. But then Lyra spoke. Her voice was the voice of a princess, proud and commanding. He was helping us, Captain. We dropped something and he helped us find it. That is all. The guard looked uncertain. Your Highness. You may escort us to our rooms now. The cleaner has work to finish. She walked past the guard without looking back. Myra followed, but at the door she turned and gave Tiho the smallest smile. A secret smile. A thankful smile. Then they were gone. Tiho stood alone in the classroom, his heart still racing. He looked at the wet drawings on the floor. They were already starting to dry. Soon there would be no evidence that anything had happened here. He should forget about tonight. He should go back to being invisible. It was safer that way. But as he cleaned up the water and collected the pieces of the broken tablet, Tiho could not stop thinking about those two girls, about the hope in their eyes when they finally understood, about the joy when they got the right answers. He had felt it again, that feeling he thought he had lost forever, the feeling of being a teacher. That night in their royal bedroom, Lyra and Myra could not sleep. They lay in their beds, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the strange human who had shown them what their expensive tutors never could. "Do you think he will help us again?" Myra whispered. "He is just a cleaner," Lyra said, but then she added, "But maybe we can find him again, tomorrow night." Myra smiled in the darkness. For the first time in months, she felt something other than fear and shame. She felt hope. And somewhere in the lower levels of the station, Tiho was also lying awake. He was thinking about two princesses who were not so different from his own daughter, two children who just needed someone to believe in them. He knew he should stay away. He knew it was dangerous. But he also knew he could not abandon them now. The teacher inside him, the one he thought had died with his old life, was waking up again. The secret lessons began the next night. Lyra and Myra found Tiho in the maintenance bay on the lower levels of the station. It was a dark, quiet place full of cleaning machines and supply boxes. No one important ever came here. It was the perfect hiding spot. Tiho was surprised to see them. Royal princesses in dirty work clothes, sneaking through service corridors like thieves. But their eyes were bright with hope, and they carried tablets full of math problems. "Please," Myra said softly, "teach us more." How could he say no? And so began a new routine. Every evening, after their official tutors left in frustration, the twins would sneak down to the maintenance bay. They would sit on old boxes and crates while Tiho drew on the dusty floor or on pieces of scrap paper. He taught them differently than their tutors did. He never started with formulas. He always started with stories. "Geometry is the study of shapes," he told them one night. "But not just any shapes, the shapes of everything. Look at this station. It is full of circles and triangles and rectangles. The engineers who built it used geometry to make sure it would not fall apart. Every wall, every window, every curve has a reason." He showed them how to see math in the world around them. The curve of a corridor was part of a circle. The support beams formed triangles for strength. The windows were rectangles because rectangles are easy to seal against the vacuum of space. "When you learn geometry," Tiho said, "you learn how to see the hidden structure of everything." Lyra loved this approach. She was a bold thinker who needed to understand the big picture before she could focus on details. Once she saw how all the pieces fit together, she could solve problems with confidence. Myra was different. She was careful and slow, easily frightened by complex problems. For her, Tiho used a gentler method. "Take it one small step at a time," he would say. "Do not look at the whole problem, just look at the first part. Solve that. Then look at the next part. Like climbing stairs. You do not jump from the bottom to the top. You take one step, then another, then another." He taught them algebra using trade negotiations. If you have 10 ships of grain and you trade 3 ships for 5 ships of metal, how many ships do you have now? This is algebra. It is just keeping track of things. He taught them statistics using asteroid paths. If an asteroid passed by the station 3 times in 10 years, and each time it came a little closer, what can we predict about the next 10 years? This is statistics. It is just looking for patterns. The twins improved rapidly. Problems that had seemed impossible before now made sense. Formulas that had been meaningless strings of symbols now told stories. But something else was changing too. The twins were smiling more. They were laughing. They had stopped feeling stupid. "You never make us feel bad when we get something wrong," Myra said one evening. The tutors always sighed and looked disappointed. It made me feel sick inside. "Mistakes are not bad," Tiho said. "Mistakes are just steps on the path to understanding. Every wrong answer teaches you something. The only real failure is giving up." 3 weeks into the secret lessons, something unexpected happened. Tiho came home late one night to find Sora sitting up in bed, wide awake. "Appa," she said, "I followed you tonight." Tiho froze. "What?" "I saw you with those two alien girls. In the maintenance bay, you were teaching them math." Tiho sat down slowly. He did not know what to say. Sora looked at him with serious eyes. "Are they the princesses? Everyone at school talks about them. They say the princesses are stupid and will probably be sent away." "They are not stupid," Tiho said firmly. "They are very smart. They just needed someone to teach them properly." Sora was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. "Can I come too? I want to see how you teach other people. Maybe I can help." Tiho should have said no. It was already dangerous enough. But Sora looked so excited, so proud of her father. And maybe having another student there would help the twins. Sometimes children learned better from other children. "Okay," he said, "but you must keep this secret, tell no one." The next night, Sora came to the maintenance bay. Lyra and Myra were surprised to see a small human girl, but Sora smiled warmly and introduced herself. "I'm Sora. My Appa is teaching you, right? He's the best teacher in the galaxy." Myra giggled. It was the first time Lyra had heard her sister giggle in months. From then on, the four of them met every evening. Tiho would teach while the three girls worked through problems together. Sora helped explain things in simple words when the twins got confused. Lyra helped Sora with advanced concepts. Myra discovered she was actually good at explaining things to others, which helped her understand the material better herself. They became friends, real friends. Species did not matter in that dusty maintenance bay. They were just children learning together, laughing together, struggling together. But outside the bay, things were getting complicated. At school, other students noticed that Sora was spending time with the princesses. The alien children did not like this. Humans were supposed to stay in their place. A human girl being friendly with royalty was unacceptable. The bullying started slowly. Mean comments in the hallway, Sora's belongings going missing, her homework getting destroyed. Once, a group of older Velen students pushed her into a wall and told her to remember her place. Sora came home with a torn shirt and tried to hide it from her father, but Tiho noticed. "What happened?" he asked gently. Sora broke down crying. She told him everything, the mean words, the pushing, the loneliness of being the only one standing up to them. Tiho held his daughter and let her cry. His heart ached. He wanted to march up to those students and demand they stop. He wanted to protect Sora from every cruel word and rough hand. But he knew that was not the answer. "Sora," he said softly, "do you remember what I told you about mistakes?" She sniffed, "That they are steps on the path to understanding." "Yes, and do you know what cruelty is? Cruelty is a mistake that people make when they are afraid. Those students are afraid of you. They are afraid because you are different, because you are kind, because you see past the color of someone's skin to the person inside." "But it hurts," Sora whispered. "I know, and I wish I could make the hurt go away. But I want you to know something important. Kindness is its own strength. Being good to others, even when they are bad to you, is not weakness. It is the hardest kind of strength there is." Sora looked up at him with wet eyes. "Do you really believe that?" "I do, and one day those children will understand too. Maybe not soon, maybe not for a long time, but eventually they will see that kindness was the right choice all along." Sora hugged her father tightly. She did not completely believe him yet. The hurt was still fresh, but she felt a little better. Meanwhile, in the royal suite, Queen Velith was growing suspicious. Her daughters had changed. They were happier, more confident. They spoke about mathematics with understanding instead of fear. Their latest tutor, a famous professor from a prestigious university, had reported something strange. The princesses seemed to already know the material before he taught it. The queen called for surveillance. Small drones, almost invisible to the eye, began following the twins, recording their movements, watching their actions. For 2 weeks, the drones saw nothing unusual. The twins went to class, met with tutors, ate dinner, went to bed. Everything normal. But one night, the drones caught something. 2 small figures sneaking out of the royal suite, moving through service corridors that royalty never used, going down to the lower levels. The footage showed the twins entering a maintenance bay. Inside, a human man was waiting, and a human child. They sat together on boxes and crates while the human man drew on the floor and explained things in a patient voice. Queen Velith watched the footage in cold silence. Her daughters, the royal princesses of the Velen Empire, were being taught by a human janitor, a cleaner, the lowest of the low. Rage built inside her, but also something else, something she did not want to admit. In the footage, her daughters were smiling, laughing, engaged. They looked at the human man with respect and admiration. They looked at the human child with friendship and warmth. They looked happy. When was the last time Velith had seen her daughters look happy? She pushed that thought away. It did not matter. This was unacceptable, a scandal waiting to happen. If anyone found out that the royal princesses were learning from a human janitor, the shame would be unbearable. She had to put a stop to this immediately. And she had to deal with the janitor. Her silver eyes grew cold as she watched him teaching her daughters. He was gentle and patient and kind, everything she had never been able to be. She hated him for it, and she would make him pay. The guards came for Tiho during his morning break. He was sitting in the maintenance bay, eating a small meal and thinking about the evening's lesson. He had planned to teach the twins about probability. He had a good story prepared, about a captain who had to decide whether to fly through an asteroid field or take the long way around. Then the door burst open, and 4 armed guards marched in. "Kang Tiho," the lead guard said, "you will come with us now." Tiho did not resist. He knew this moment would come eventually. He had hoped for more time, but he had always known the risk. They took him to the royal suite, the highest level of the station. He had never been here before. The walls were covered with precious metals and crystals. Beautiful artworks hung everywhere. The floor was so polished he could see his reflection. He looked out of place, a tired man in worn clothes, surrounded by unbelievable luxury. The guards brought him to a large room with a throne at one end. Queen Velith sat on the throne, watching him approach with cold silver eyes. 2 other Velen nobles stood beside her, looking at Tiho with disgust. When Tiho was close enough, a guard pushed him down. He fell to his knees on the hard floor. "This is the human," the queen said. Her voice was like winter ice. "The janitor who has been corrupting my daughters." One of the nobles sneered. "A cleaner teaching princesses. It would be laughable if it were not so offensive." Tiho kept his head bowed. He knew speaking without permission could make things worse. "Look at me," the queen commanded. Tiho raised his eyes. He saw anger in her face, but also something else, something confused and hurt, the face of a mother who did not understand. "For weeks you have been meeting my daughters in secret," she said. "You have been filling their heads with who knows what. You have made them lie to their tutors. You have made them sneak around like thieves. Explain yourself." Tiho took a slow breath. "Your Majesty, I meant no disrespect. I only wanted to help." "Help?" The noble beside the queen laughed bitterly. "A human helping Velen royalty. With what? You are not qualified to clean their shoes, let alone teach them anything." Tiho's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. I was a teacher on my planet for 15 years. I have taught many children. I saw that your daughters were struggling, and I tried to show them a different way of learning. A different way, the Queen leaned forward. My daughters have had the finest tutors in the Empire, professors and scholars and experts. Are you saying you are better than all of them? No, Your Majesty. I am saying I understand what they need. Your tutors teach with formulas and memorization. That works for some students, but not all. Lyra and Myra need to understand why things work, not just how. They need stories, examples, real-world connections. They need patience and encouragement. The Queen was silent for a long moment. The nobles glanced at each other nervously. Then the door burst open behind Tiho. He heard running footsteps and then two voices shouting. Mother, stop! Lyra and Myra rushed into the room. Guards tried to grab them, but they twisted free and ran to stand in front of Tiho. The Queen rose from her throne. Girls, leave immediately. This does not concern you. It does concern us, Lyra shouted. She was trembling with anger and fear, but she did not back down. He was helping us. For the first time in our lives, we understand mathematics. For the first time, we do not feel stupid. You are not stupid, the Queen said sharply. You are princesses of the Velen Empire. You have the finest education possible. The finest education made us cry every night, Lyra's voice cracked. The finest education made Myra sick with fear. She could not sleep. She could not eat. She thought there was something wrong with her brain. Myra stepped forward. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand, but she spoke anyway. Mother, Mr. Kang is the only teacher who ever made me feel like I was not broken. He never sighed at my mistakes. He never looked disappointed. He just kept explaining until I understood. And I do understand now. I really do. The Queen looked at her daughters with an expression Tiho could not read. Was it anger, confusion, pain? The silence stretched on. Finally, the Queen sat back on her throne. Her voice was controlled, dangerous. You say he has helped you. You say you understand now. Very well, we will test this claim. She looked at Tiho with ice in her eyes. The Imperial Mathematics examination is in 3 days. It is designed for students 3 years older than my daughters. The passing score is 70%. If my daughters take this examination and both pass, I will accept that your methods have value. The matter will be closed. Lyra's eyes widened. Mother, that examination is impossible for us. We have never studied that material. Then your teacher should have taught you better. The Queen's gaze moved to Tiho. If my daughters fail, you and your child will be removed from this station permanently. You will be placed on a transport ship and sent to the outer colonies. Do you understand what that means? Tiho understood. The outer colonies were dangerous places, poor planets on the edge of civilized space. Many who went there never came back. I understand, he said quietly. No, Myra cried. That is not fair. He was only trying to help. Life is not fair, daughter. The Queen's voice was hard. If this human truly has value, let him prove it. If not, let him face the consequences of interfering with things beyond his station. The guards pulled Tiho to his feet. The meeting was over. As he was led out, Lyra and Myra ran after him. We are so sorry, Lyra said, tears in her eyes. This is our fault. We should never have asked you for help. Tiho stopped and looked at them. Despite everything, he smiled. Do not apologize. I made my choice and I would make it again. Now we have 3 days. Are you ready to work harder than you have ever worked before? The twins looked at each other, then back at him. Yes, they said together. The next 3 days were intense. Tiho met with the twins every possible moment. Morning, afternoon, evening, late into the night. They studied in the maintenance bay, in empty classrooms, in storage closets, anywhere they could find. Sora joined them, helping with explanations and practice problems. She pushed the twins when they got tired. She encouraged them when they got scared. Tiho taught faster than before, but he never lost his patience. He explained every concept twice, 3 times, 10 times if needed. He drew pictures. He told stories. He made connections between new ideas and old ones. The Imperial examination covers advanced algebra, geometry, statistics, and basic calculus, he said on the first day. We have 3 days. Some of this material usually takes months to learn, but I believe you can do it. How? Myra asked desperately. How can we learn months of material in 3 days? Because you already understand the foundations. Your expensive tutors taught you nothing, but I taught you the core ideas. Now we just need to build on them quickly. We are not starting from nothing. We are building on strength. The twins studied until their eyes burned. They solved problems until their hands cramped. They dreamed about equations and woke up with formulas in their heads. On the second night, Myra broke down. I cannot do this, she sobbed, throwing her tablet aside. This is too much. The examination is tomorrow night and I still do not understand calculus properly. I am going to fail and you and Sora will be sent away because of me. Tiho knelt beside her. Gently, he lifted her chin so she was looking at him. Myra, listen to me. I was a teacher for 15 years. I have taught hundreds of students, smart ones and struggling ones, fast learners and slow learners. Do you know what I learned from all of them? Myra shook her head. Every child can learn, every single one. Some need more time, some need different methods, but every child has the ability to understand. The only ones who truly fail are the teachers who give up on them. He wiped the tears from her blue cheeks. I have not given up on you, I never will, so do not give up on yourself. Myra looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she picked up her tablet again. Explain calculus one more time, she whispered, please. Tiho smiled. Calculus is about change. Everything in the universe is always changing. Calculus is the language we use to describe that change. He drew a line on the floor. Imagine a spaceship. It is not moving at the same speed all the time. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes slower. Calculus helps us answer questions like, if the ship keeps changing speed like this, where will it be in 10 minutes? He spent the next 2 hours explaining derivatives and integrals using spaceships and stars and orbits. By the end, Myra was nodding along. The fear in her eyes was slowly being replaced by understanding. At 3 in the morning, Lyra declared that they needed to sleep, or they would be too tired to think during the examination. Before they separated, Myra hugged Tiho tightly. It was the first time she had ever hugged anyone besides her sister. Velen royalty did not show physical affection. It was considered undignified. But in that moment, Myra did not care about dignity. She cared about the kind human who had believed in her when no one else did. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Tiho hugged her back. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you show the universe what you can do. Later that night, in his small room, Tiho sat by the window and looked at the stars. Sora was sleeping peacefully beside him. He thought about his wife, about the life they had planned together, about everything that had gone wrong. But he also thought about the twins, about Sora, about the strange journey that had brought him here to this moment. Maybe losing his old life was not the end. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Tomorrow would decide everything. But for now, Tiho closed his eyes and allowed himself to hope. The grand hall was full of people. Nobles in expensive clothes sat in rising rows of seats. Military officers stood along the walls, their uniforms perfect and their faces stern. Scholars and professors gathered in small groups, whispering to each other. Everyone who was important on the station had come to watch. At the front of the hall, 2 examination desks stood alone on a raised platform. Behind them, the queen sat on her throne, watching everything with cold silver eyes. Lyra and Myra entered through a side door. They wore simple examination clothes, as tradition required. Their faces were pale and their hands were trembling. As they walked to their desks, they heard whispers from the crowd. "Poor things, this examination is far too advanced for them. The Queen is being cruel. She knows they will fail. I heard they were being taught by a human janitor. Can you imagine?" Lyra clenched her fists. She wanted to shout at them, to tell them they were wrong, but there was no point. The only way to prove anything was to pass the examination. The twins sat at their desks. Examination tablets waited for them, screens dark. Soon, those screens would light up with problems that would decide everything. In the back of the hall, hidden in the shadows near the service door, Tiho stood watching. Sora held his hand tightly. "They can do this, right, Appa?" Sora whispered. Tiho squeezed her hand. "Yes, they can." But his heart was pounding. 3 days of intensive study. Was it enough? Had he taught them everything they needed? Had he made the right choices about what to focus on? A loud chime echoed through the hall. The examination was beginning. The tablets lit up. The first problem appeared on both screens. Lyra looked at it, a complex equation with multiple variables. Her first instinct was to panic, but then she remembered Tiho's words. "Do not look at the whole problem at once. Break it into pieces. Find the story it is telling." She took a deep breath. What was this equation about? She studied it carefully. Trade. It was about trade. Ships carrying goods between planets with different exchange rates at each stop. She began to work. At the next desk, Myra stared at her screen. Her mind wanted to freeze, to shut down like it always did during tests, but she heard Tiho's voice in her head. "One step at a time. Climb the stairs. Do not look up at how far you have to go. Just take the next step." She focused on the first part of the problem. Just the first part. Nothing else existed. The examination continued for 2 hours. Problem after problem appeared on the screens. Algebra, geometry, statistics, calculus. Some were straightforward. Others were wickedly difficult, designed to trick students into wrong answers. In the audience, professors nodded approvingly at particularly clever problems. They expected the princesses to fail. Everyone expected them to fail. But on the platform, something unusual was happening. Lyra was not panicking. She was working steadily, confidently. Her stylus moved across the tablet with purpose. When she encountered a difficult problem, she paused, thought, drew small pictures in the corner of the screen, and then solved it. Myra was not freezing. She was taking her time, working carefully through each problem step by step. She whispered to herself as she calculated, narrating her own thinking the way Tiho had taught her. "The ship starts here. It burns fuel at this rate. Gravity is pulling at this angle." The crowd began to notice. The whispers changed. "She got that one right, I saw it." "Wait, did the shy one just solve a calculus problem?" "That is impossible. They have never shown this level of ability before." Queen Velith leaned forward on her throne. Her expression was unreadable. The final chime echoed. The examination was over. Lyra set down her stylus. She had answered every question. Whether she answered them correctly, she did not know, but she had tried her best. Myra finished her last calculation just as time ran out. Her hands were shaking badly now, but from exhaustion, not fear. She had done everything she could. The tablets collected their answers and sent them to the central processor for grading. Everyone waited. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Finally, a screen at the front of the hall lit up. The results were ready. An official stepped forward and read from a formal scroll. "Princess Lyra of House Velith, score 94 out of 100, result, pass with honors." The hall erupted in gasps and murmurs. 94, that was an exceptional score. Students years older than Lyra often scored lower. Lyra covered her mouth with her hands. Tears began streaming down her face. The official waited for silence, then continued. Princess Myra of House Velith, score 91 out of 100, result, pass with honors. Myra collapsed forward onto her desk, sobbing. Happy sobs, disbelieving sobs. She had done it. She had actually done it. The crowd was in chaos. Nobles were talking over each other. Scholars were demanding to see the raw scores. Military officers looked confused. No one understood how this had happened. In the shadows at the back of the hall, Sora jumped up and down silently, squeezing Tiho's arm. Tiho's eyes were wet. He was smiling so wide his face hurt. Queen Velith rose from her throne. The hall fell silent immediately. She walked down from the platform, her gown trailing behind her. Her silver eyes were fixed on someone specific. The crowd parted as she walked. Nobles stepped aside, bowing their heads. The queen walked all the way to the back of the hall, to the service door, to the shadows where a human janitor stood with his daughter. Tiho immediately dropped to his knees. Sora followed, lowering her head. The queen stood before them. For a long moment she said nothing. The silence was heavy, dangerous. Then slowly she inclined her head, just slightly, just enough for everyone to see. The queen of the Velan Empire was bowing to a human janitor. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some nobles looked outraged, others looked amazed. "You have done what the greatest minds of my empire could not," Queen Velith said. Her voice was different now. Not warm exactly, but no longer ice-cold. "My daughters have struggled for years. They have been called failures and defects. Every expert I brought told me they simply lacked ability." She paused. "But you taught them in a few weeks what those experts could not teach in years. Tell me, Kang Tiho, what is your secret?" Tiho raised his eyes. He saw a proud queen who was not used to being wrong. But he also saw a mother who loved her daughters, even if she did not know how to show it. "No secret, Your Majesty," he said quietly. "I just listened to them. I found out how they think and taught them in a way that made sense to their minds, and I never stopped believing they could do it." The queen was silent again. Something moved behind her silver eyes, something painful and regretful. "I should have believed in them," she said, almost to herself. "I should have listened." She straightened. Her royal mask was back in place, but something had cracked beneath it. "I offer you a position," she announced. "Royal Academic Advisor. You will have authority over all tutors and teachers in the palace. Your salary will be 50 times what you currently earn. Your daughter will have the finest education available." The crowd buzzed with amazement. A human given a royal appointment, unheard of. Tiho stood slowly. He looked at the queen, at the watching nobles, at the girls on the platform who were now running toward him. "I am honored, Your Majesty, but I must respectfully decline." More gasps. The queen's eyebrows rose. "You decline, why?" Lyra and Myra reached Tiho and threw their arms around him. He hugged them back before answering. "I do not want power or money. I want only one thing, that my daughter and other human children on this station are treated as equals. No more bullying, no more discrimination. They should have the same opportunities as everyone else." The queen studied him for a long moment. "You would refuse everything I offer for the sake of other people's children." "For the sake of what is right," Tiho said simply. Queen Velith looked at the twins clinging to the human janitor. She looked at his daughter standing proudly beside him. She looked at the kindness in his eyes, the quiet dignity in his stance. "Very well," she said finally. "From this day forward, human children on this station will be treated as equals in all academic matters. Anyone who violates this decree will answer to me personally." Tiho bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The crowd began to disperse, nobles chattering about the incredible events they had witnessed. The story would spread across the station by morning. The human janitor who taught princesses, the queen who bowed, everything had changed. Later that night, in the maintenance bay, A small celebration was held. Lyra and Myra brought sweet cakes from the royal kitchen. Sora provided decorations made from old cleaning supplies. Tiho supplied the laughter and the warmth. "You are going to keep teaching us, right?" Myra asked anxiously, "even though the examination is over." "Of course," Tiho said. "We have only covered mathematics. There is still physics, chemistry, biology. The universe is full of wonders to learn about." Lyra grinned. "Maybe next you can teach us about human history. I want to know about your planet." "And cooking," Sora added. "Appa makes the best rice cakes. You have to try them." The four of them talked and laughed late into the night. Species did not matter. Status did not matter. They were just a teacher and his students, a father and his children, friends who had found each other in an unlikely place. Months later, life on the station had changed in ways no one expected. Tiho still worked as a janitor. He had received many job offers, but he always politely refused. He liked his work. He liked being able to help students after classes ended, when the halls were quiet and learning was not about grades or pressure. But now students knew his name. Human, Velan, and alien children of many species would seek him out when they struggled. He tutored them in empty classrooms and quiet corridors. He never asked for payment. He never turned anyone away. Lyra and Myra visited him every evening, no longer in secret. Sometimes they needed help with homework. Sometimes they just wanted to talk. They had become like daughters to him, and Sora had become like a sister to them. Queen Velith never grew warm exactly, but she stopped being cold. She attended her daughter's academic events. She asked about their studies at dinner. Once, Tiho even saw her smile when Myra explained a physics concept. Human children at the academy walked with their heads high now. The bullying had stopped almost completely. Those who tried to start it quickly learned that the royal princesses did not tolerate discrimination against their friends. On a quiet evening, Tiho was mopping the 7th floor corridor. His mop moved in the familiar pattern, back and forth, back and forth. But now he was humming a song his wife used to sing. "Mr. Kang," a voice echoed down the hallway. He looked up and saw Myra running toward him, a tablet in her hands. "Can you help me with physics? There is this problem about orbital mechanics that I do not understand." Tiho smiled. He set down his mop and walked toward her. The universe was strange and beautiful. It had taken everything from him once: his career, his wife, his dreams. It had forced him to become invisible, to scrub floors and empty trash bins, to be ignored by everyone who passed. But it had also given him something precious: a daughter who loved him, students who believed in him, a purpose that no one could take away. He was still a janitor. He would probably always be a janitor. But he was also a teacher. And that was enough.